So let's say you had an awesome first meeting with a business partner or investor. Well, that's great, but what happens next? How do you keep the momentum flowing? This Uncapped Notes episode is all about how to keep your relationship warm for the long term.
So just to remind folks, our last episode of Uncapped Notes was all about establishing great rapport with a partner from the first meeting. If you haven't watched it yet, we'll link to it in the show notes.
Yes, that's definitely worth watching. So, Janelle, you are the head of partnerships at Hustle Fund and the absolute queen when it comes to keeping many key relationships warm. What are some of your favorite tactics for how you do this? And let's play an example for this episode. Let's say that I am your prospective investor. We just hung up from a great first pitch meeting. What comes next?
It's all about hustle. And in this case, I am a big believer that fast follow-ups matter a lot. So in this scenario, if we have just hung up on a great call, I want to email you as quickly as possible with a follow-up note.
Okay, so how quick is quick?
Well, I know in your case, Eric, when you are fundraising, you try to follow up within minutes of hanging up. That is cool, but I think what practically works well and is still impressive is setting expectations before you hang up that I'll follow up in the afternoon or usually within 24 hours. And I make it clear. And the important thing is to actually do that follow-up within the timeline that you've set, because it signals that you are a truly responsive, consistent person.
All right, awesome. So let's say we can follow up fast after that meeting. What do you actually say in your follow-up?
First, I like to lean into reiterating a detail that excited the person during the call. So as an example, if a partner mentions how they are interested in serving early stage founders, I'll talk about the breadth of the Hustle Fund portfolio of pre-seed stage founders and how we may have an upcoming meetup with our founders they should participate in.
Yeah, and in the case earlier of that example as well, let's say that you did a pitch with an investor. Perhaps you're a fintech company and they mention, oh, I'm really interested in Latin American fintech infrastructure. Maybe that's a detail that you can also include that could be relevant for your pitch, or maybe framing your company or yourself as a thought leader in this space and an important partner. Okay, so let's get back into this. What else do you include, though, in that follow-up email? And let's actually shift the context back into the work that you do with partnerships here.
So baseline, anything that you said you would share during the meeting, make sure that you share that. So that could be rate cards or information about the events that you discussed. I want them to have everything so that they can review it, and that will also springboard us to our next communication.
Yeah, I dig this a lot. And the expectations piece, I think, is a key word here. So setting that context, but also setting expectations that I'm going to reach out to you again, I think is really important. So let's talk about that last part, which is setting expectations for communication. How do you do this in your work? What does this look like?
So at the end of that email, I'll usually say something like, I'll follow up in a week after you've had a chance to process the info and get your thoughts together. And then I set a reminder for myself in Superhuman, my awesome email client, to snooze the note for 7 days or so, and it'll pop up back in my inbox if I haven't heard back from them already.
All right, this is really clever. And it's not just Superhuman, by the way, that has a snooze button, but this exists in a lot of other email clients. Gmail has a good version of this as well. And I also think it's a really effective tool for sales and partnerships. That expectation, that follow-up after you set those expectations, brilliant. But what happens if the message comes back a week later and they still haven't responded yet?
Yeah, I think a lot of founders overthink follow-ups. People get busy and sometimes they just don't have time to follow up. So what I do, I just continue to follow up until I hear either a yes or a no. But I'll include a face saving out. So after a few attempts, if I'm still getting ghosted, I can put in the note that I'll stop pinging them if they are too busy or if it's not the right time to partner. I just need a confirmation.
I use this exact same technique when I am fundraising for our fund at Hustle Fund. One time, Janelle, I pinged an investor 12 times. Each response was just pure ghosting. But on that 13th time, the person committed capital. So persistence is more appreciated than people might think here.
So let's talk about what happens once you've confirmed a partnership or the opposite, confirmed that it's not possible. It's important to stay in touch and check in. I like to send out a monthly update about what's happening at Hustle Fund. And so even if the person has said no, I'll say, I'll keep you posted on what's happening at Hustle Fund. And then they're automatically on my monthly updates. And this is something that a lot of folks forget, is that you actually need to stay in touch and follow up.
This has been such a tactical episode, Janelle. I love these steps for establishing long-term partnerships with the method that you outlined.
Hopefully you enjoyed this Uncapped Notes episode on maintaining long-term relationships. If so, we encourage you to sign up for our newsletter, The Founder Playbook, where we share more advice like this for early startup founders. We'll share the link to sign up in the show notes below. See you next time.